The Kresge Auditorium was designed by the esteemed architect Eero Saarinen to become the main auditorium space for Massachusetts Institute of Technology in the 1950s. The groundbreaking took place in 1953, and the dedication occurred 2 years later in 1955. The building was named in honor of Sebastian S. Kresge, who was the founder of SS Kresge Stores, known today as Kmart. He also founded the Kresge Foundation, and his philanthropic donation made possible both the auditorium and the Kresge Chapel, both designed by Saarinen. The building is 1/8 of a sphere, rising to a height of 50 feet that is then sliced away by sheer glass curtained walls. The dome only weighs 1,200 tons, and the feet holding up the dome are considered buttresses. Nothing had ever been done like this with concrete before, which resulted in heavy criticism and costly repairs. The roof structure features a spherical dome, touching down at only 3 points. It has an elegant thin shell structure of reinforced concrete. The roof was originally covered with a smooth, bright Aura stone, then replaced with lead sheathing, before finally being replaced with copper in 1980 that is still seen today. The triangular plan and spherical roof created difficulties that led to extreme stresses to the perimeter of the structure, resulting in the thickening of the shell to 18 inches at the perimeter. Eero Saarinen was born August 20th, 1920. He grew up in Michigan before moving to Paris to study architecture. He then moved to Connecticut to study at Yale. After his studies were completed, he traveled throughout North Africa as well as Europe before returning to his homeland of Finland. However, he finally settled back in the United States in Cranbrook, Connecticut, working for his father. The building is composed of a 1,226-seat auditorium, as well as a 204-seat theater located beneath the auditorium. Each seat in the auditorium has an unobstructed view of the stage. The building also includes rehearsal space, dressing rooms, offices, and lounges.
Sometimes the problem and the times are ripe for an entirely new functional approach to a problem. No one asked us to grapple with the problem of the jet-age terminal beyond the question of pure architecture. But I believe the architect has to assume that kind of responsibility.
The essential element of Eero's approach to architecture was, what is the problem you are trying to solve? Now, many architects will brush that off and have a creative moment to make a scribble and say, do that. He wasn't that way at all.
In the case of Dulles, his first thought wasn't what is it going to look like or what is it going to be. His first thought was, how do we solve the passengers walking for miles? The jets are getting bigger. Passengers are going longer and longer distances to the plane. So how do you solve that?
We became convinced that some new method of passenger handling had to be found. The soundest system seemed to be one which brought the passenger to the plane rather than the plane to the passenger. We arrived at the concept of the mobile lounge. The acceptance of the mobile lounge concept allowed us to make the terminal a single compact building. We started with abstract ideal shapes, Gradually, we arrived at the idea of a curved roof. It occurred to us that this could be a suspended roof. The Ingalls Rink gave us courage to go to the hanging roof here.
When he did the Yale hockey rink, he had a spine and then he draped the cables and put wood on top of that. Here, he's draping cables and he's putting a concrete roof on the cables. You know, you scratch your head a little bit. So it sticks with you. It's like, oh yeah, cool idea. But how does the roof stay up?
Saarinen sent people out from his office all over the country to look and see what a great hockey rink would be like, and they came back and said, they're all horrible. They're all just barns with ice in the middle. So he set out to make something that would express the excitement of the hockey game.
We have the problem of a roof and a new way of using old materials. We're spanning the space by one single concrete arch, then hanging cables from that arch, and on that we build the roof.
Remember, he wanted to be a sculptor, so he had that innately in him. Where did he get the idea of extending the structure and creating the lights at the end that make it look like a Norse ship? I don't know.
Saarinen made amazing shapes. Ingalls Rink was called for a while the Yale whale, because it almost looked like a huge beached whale, this great sculptural object. You hadn't seen something like that before. It was an attitude that you could almost describe as picturesque. His willingness to make architecture entertaining. He cared about what images buildings evoked, what they felt like. He wanted to create buildings that you would engage with emotionally. And that's something very different from what was really going on with modernism in the 50s.